All right, my friends, welcome back. This is going to be part 85 of my presentation on the flood in Noah's Ark. And it will be the last video that I do with topics that either relate or have anything to do with the Ice Age. And 16 videos is what I have for just the Ice Age block. And so, but we are going to look at the Lost Squadron, and show you some unique things about it and how creationists have been able to show that some of the uniformitarian thinking is false. On July 15th, 1942, 6 P-38 Lightning fighter planes and 2 gigantic B-17 Flying Fortress bombers were headed to a British airfield to aid in the war against Hitler. While over the polar ice cap, they ran into a massive blizzard. Due to not having anywhere to refuel, they became critically low on fuel and decided to crash land on Greenland's east coast. When the first plane flipped while trying to land, the others came in with their wheels up for a belly landing, and the planes were only lightly damaged. The crew were rescued 9 days later by a dog sled, and the planes were abandoned. In 1988, with the use of a sophisticated type of radar and the help of an Icelandic geophysicist, 8 large shapes were found beneath the ice in the same pattern they had originally landed, though, due to glacial flow, they had moved 3 miles from their original location. Using a small makeshift steam probe, they called it a super gopher, which was a 5-foot-high device wound with copper coils through which hot water is pumped. This melted a 4-foot-wide shaft about 2 feet an hour. 250 feet down, yes, 250 feet down, the first plane, which was a B-17 bomber, was reached. A worker then used a hot water hose to make a cavern around the plane. The huge bomber was crushed and not salvageable. It wasn't salvaged due to the extensive damage. They then abandoned attempting to salvage anything. The discoverers were shocked. They thought they would just find the planes with no more than a light cover of snow and ice. Instead, in 46 years, the planes had 250 feet of ice on top of them. Now, I will say one thing right now. That worker that went down there, 200 feet down with only a 4-foot wide shaft, I'm going to tell you right now, guys, you talk about claustrophobic. That is absolutely amazing. That guy is brave, Now, going on. In May 1992, they returned in hopes of getting one of the P-38s. It was thought that the P-38s were built more solid and could have survived the tremendous weight of the ice. They were correct. One of the P-38s they found 260 feet was called Glacier Girl, was in really good condition. Though later they found it too had been crushed in areas. They did believe that once operational, it could use 80% of its original parts. All right, if you'll notice here, this is a map of their route. If you'll notice down there at the bottom left, the original starting point, and then which was in Maine, and then they flew up, and then you got that starting point, which was a secret location. They left off from there, and before they made it to the refueling stop, because of the weather, they circled back, and then they landed. They kind of emergency crash landing, so to speak. I guess one of them crashed. The other ones made it pretty good. And but that's the pattern. That's the route. They were actually, it shows where they were headed to, and then what they actually did. And then what they did is they ran these radar down. I can only imagine. That is absolutely amazing to just think about it. They came and the planes were gone, and then they ran these scans over it, and then finding them 250 feet down. I mean, that's just amazing. And this is what they did with that makeshift device called that gopher. They called it cold mining. Cold mining. And I'm just reading what they have right here. Cold mining is simply a process of boring through ice. The main tool used in this process is hot water. Various devices were designed, tested, and used in the recovery of Glacier Girl, but all of them utilized hot water as a melting agent. The first step to the recovery process was setting up the base camp, which included a shelter for the cold mining apparatus. Illustrated at the top right. So if you can see that there, that picture of it looks like a Gopher 3, and so that's basically what it is. And using a steam probe, an 8-foot-long steel rod trailing 300 feet of steel reinforced tubing, the team located Glacier Girl 260 feet of 1-inch steel pipe was run down the resulting hole to act as a guide for the Super Gopher. Once it had bored down to the plane, the crew descended and used a hot water cannon to carve a 50-foot wide cavern around Glacier Girl. I would be afraid the whole thing would just collapse on me. And this is a picture of them working. Oh my goodness, you wouldn't get me down there. There ain't no way. And here's another picture. That is absolutely just amazing. And here's another. Right down. And then this is when they're down in it. Gosh, I would just be afraid it would collapse on me. That is incredible. And here's another picture. That is a tremendous amount of work. Take that thing apart. Going on. Ice cores in Greenland are used for dating, based on the belief that the layers containing various isotope ratios were laid down, somewhat like the rings of a tree, over many tens of thousands of years. Secular scientists have observed over 680,000 rings and cylinders from Greenland. Some of the dates given for these annual rings, that's what they call them, annual rings, has been as much as 800,000 years, due to looking at volcanic dust and measuring fluctuations of different chemicals. These rings, long cores taken by samples from Greenland and Antarctica, are assumed, now you get that, guys, they are assumed to be layers representing annual accumulations of snow in the colder months by separations of lack of snowfall and some surface melting during the warmer months. The further down the ice core samples, the more blurred the rings are. This is believed to have happened because the weight of the ice pressing down on the deeper ice. Now, Dr. Larry Vardaman, former atmospheric physicist for the Institute for Creation Research. Now, you see, this guy has credentials. This guy has credentials too, just like those supposed scientific evolutionists that keep saying creationists aren't scientific. He's an atmospheric physicist for the Institute for Creation Research, which is nothing but scientists. That's all they are. And his graduate students tested alternative possibilities. They examined computer records of known storms to simulate their behavior if the surface of the ocean were hotter, as it was in the early decades after the flood. These researchers found that huge storms would have swept across polar regions, dumping many inches of snow every week. As the surface melted between these storms, 20 or more ice layers could easily have accumulated every year during the first century or two after the flood. The same time period saw many dust-producing volcanic eruptions as supervolcanoes rocked the Earth, and the planet settled into relative quiet after the cataclysmic upheavals of the flood. So, most of the ice core layers would probably have accumulated during the turbulent centuries of the post-flood ice age. Scientists have discovered the remains of plants, wood, insects, and fungi below 10,000 feet, and this was in 1993. A GISP2 ice core drilled in central Greenland. Similar items were found below the Camp Century ice core from northwest Greenland. Glaciologists interpret this to mean the Greenland ice sheet melted completely during an interglacial period of warming in the Pleistocene. However, creation scientists would explain the greenery as due to the relatively warm climate at low altitudes of Greenland, before the ice covered it all. The mild climate was caused by the warm ocean after the flood, which fueled the ice age. And that would match with Michael Oard also. In the frozen waste of Siberia, an amazing salamander is able to survive in suspended animation for years, deep frozen at temperatures as low as minus 58 degrees Fahrenheit, only to thaw out and run off afterwards. Scientists are not yet sure of the exact mechanism, but like some other animals, they almost certainly produce antifreeze, chemicals to replace water in their tissues and cells. Some have been found buried in ice, which is believed to be from the Pleistocene age 12,000 years ago by evolutionary reckoning. Yet they still recovered them thawed out. Though researchers have discussed the idea of radiocarbon dating to test the idea that they could possibly be that old, they say that the creatures probably fell to this depth much later. That sounds like something they would say. Through deep cracks in the permafrost. Whether or not so, the belief that ice layers only 46 feet down are many thousands of years old in light of the Lost Squadron experience cannot be taken for granted. And so that right there is the information that I have on the Lost Squadron. But those layers, all those layers, you got to think, those planes on top of 200, or at the bottom of 250 feet of ice, and those layers, if you look at the ice, you'll see like layers of light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. And what they were saying is, by uniformitarian thinking, that those lines are annual lines, where you have like a dark line would be like summer when it melted, and then the light one would be like when it was wintertime. And so it's we're saying, but what they're saying here, and I have heard this too, that sometimes you can get multiple layers in even a day, or a week. And so it's not a good way of looking at those and trying to give a timeline on them. And so just like you saw, in that short amount of time that the planes were down there, even though they were a long time for us, 250 feet of ice. I mean, they literally thought they would just go over there, brush off the ice and snow, and work on them a little bit and fly them off. That's literally what they thought they were going to do, and it didn't happen. And so, but then again, it showed for scientists that those layers that they thought were thousands and thousands of years old, thousands and thousands of even plus years old, wasn't really that old at all. And so now, if guys, that's it for the Ice Age. And let me just say, if you want to learn more, these books right here, and I've talked about them before, Frozen in Time by Michael Oard, or anything, I mean anything by Michael Oard, is something that you guys are definitely are going to want to check out. Now, Michael Oard just put out a new book talking about the ice core samples and the annual rings and all that. He just put that out. If you would go to creation.com magazine, and go on their website. I'll have a link in the description below for my YouTubers and my Rumble people and Facebook people. Just go to the description above. I'll have a link in the description for you guys to go to creation.com if you guys want to check out that book by Michael Oard. I'm not really sure. I did get I got a flyer in the mail because I just got a new magazine in the mail, and but it's this magazine right here. This is what I'm talking about. Creation.com. This is creation.com magazine, and so great magazine. This is one of the subscriptions that I have, and then I have Answers in Genesis, and I'm actually looking at getting back my membership with Creation Research Society. And so, but Michael Oard, going back to the slide here, anything by Michael Oard on the left-hand side, remember that name there, Michael Oard. This is all this guy does is research the Ice Age. He's a weatherman, and he's got credentials. He knows his stuff, guys. He knows his stuff, and he puts God into the equation. That right there is the most important. And I think the Lord is going to bless his research, and we are going to learn some fascinating things through him. And so, again, In the Beginning by Walter Brown. I'll have a link in the description also for you guys to go right to his website, and you can look at this. It looks like you can look at the book online. I'm not sure if you can download it or not, but I purchased mine, and it was downloadable. It's downloadable. It's in PDF format. Outstanding books, guys, both of these. And so Andrew Snelling, anything by Andrew Snelling, you want to check him out. A geologist, and he does all types of stuff, and great research. Anything by any creationist, guys, you're going to learn something. You're going to learn something, and you're going to learn the right way. You're going to learn the right way. And so, but at any rate, we're going to stop right there. That is it for the Ice Age. And so the next topic on the flood and Noah's Ark, we are going to get into, oh yeah, this is a good one. We're going to get into flood myths and flood legends. We are going to get into that, and be prepared to have your plate full. I'm going to fill it up, and we're going to look at some wild stuff. I'm not sure how large this block is going to be, but we're going to get in all types of stuff, guys, on this. And it is just fascinating. It's fascinating just how all around this planet, the globe of the earth, there are legends of the flood, all types of cultures. And we're going to go through them. We're going to go through a whole bunch of them. And so, even though some of them may differ here and there, you cannot deny that there has to be something more to it. And so, there's got to be something more to it. But, my friends, I hope that you've learned something. It's been a pleasure to bring you as much as I have in these 85 videos. And so, I still see us going at least, we're going to be over 100 videos before I'm done. Well over 100 videos. And we're going to just get into some all types of topics and stuff like that. And so, even though I may not have an answer for everything, I just want to at least be able to give you at least a background on it. And so, again, my material is for Bible believers. I am not here to try to convince people who do not believe. I'm not here to do that. It's absolutely a complete waste of time. They don't want an answer. They want an argument. And so I've been doing this enough to know that. And so, but I want my Bible believers out there to be encouraged that this book right here can be trusted. Every bit of it can be trusted. 100% can be trusted, no matter what this sinful, foolish world wants to say. All right? You guys take care. I love you. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.